I know I've been stomping on the harem genre pretty fanatically for the last few episodes, and I think with good reason. The genre sucks. It's boring and it's devoid of any creative spark other than how many different hairstyles and color combinations you can slap on whatever Bambi-eyed automata you created this week. But there are shows that at least manage to make it a little bit more interesting than perhaps one would expect. So when we get right down to what the harem genre is, let's lay out some ground rules. The protagonist is male, the majority of the cast is female. At least 3 of the women want to get with him. And no, we are not touching on reverse harems, that is a different genre altogether. Now you may notice that a lot of these come from shows based on visual novels. That's because it's relatively easy to make harem games in visual novel format, because you'd have to do some actual work otherwise. That's really all the rules needed to get a handle on this genre. Keep well in mind who's making this list, so don't expect to see Oni-chan Fuck Me Softly or whatever shit came out this year on the list. But before that, let's look at the honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is Love Hina. The only place this deserves to be is on the runner-up list, but it is important to make sure to mention it so people know where to place the blame. Yes, that's right, Love Hina is the codifier for a number of things that have been played out and beaten to death in recent years, like tsunderes, weird loli characters, and extremely bland protagonists. So congrats, you get to be our first runner-up. Runner-up number 2 is probably the biggest reason that we have so many non-endings of harem shows nowadays. Tenchi Muyo was a sci-fi show first and a harem show second, but it still had a bunch of gals all trying to jump poor Tenchi when he wasn't fighting off the baddie of the week. Perhaps the law of unintended consequences is strongly in effect here. So with all that out of the way, a disclaimer about the following list. It is subjective. It is so subjective that if you consider it in any way objective or definitive, then you probably should go and get your head examined because you're clearly mad. Nothing about any review is objective, and if they're telling you different, they are lying to you. So, let's get this show on the road. Number 5. To Heart. On the surface, there's really not a whole lot about this particular series that makes it stand out against the other weirdos out there. But what it lacks in peculiarity, it makes up for in simplicity. A lot of harem shows get really hung up on making their characters wild and crazy and out there, but this one remembers the basics and just tells a good story. Yeah, it's got a robot girl with green hair in it, but she's an anomaly. To Heart dispenses with the weirdness and gets right down to brass tacks, which slides it into slot number 5. Number 4. Machikoi Samurai Girls. So the problem I run into with a lot of harem shows is that the main character is just this little wiener with no skill or interesting character traits, while the other characters around him are only marginally more developed. Yes, it's all about making sure that whatever neat-ass punk is watching this show doesn't feel too outclassed or whatever. But Samurai Girls says nuts to that and makes the main character worth watching in spite of all these superpowered ladies going and wrecking the show. And it remembers to tell a story beyond the romance stuff too, as well as doing some fun things with emotions and being true to oneself. And while I know it looks like a dumb fanservice show out the gate, it does have some redeeming qualities. Number 3. Comic Party. If there's one thing that an anime adaptation of a series should do is make you want to experience more of the original work. This is where Comic Party excels. Because it's not bound to a single plotline, it can go in depth a fair bit more on the characters, while still maintaining what made the original work worth watching. They actually take the time to work on character interaction and make them feel like people you might actually enjoy watching the adventures of, rather than funny shapes and colors that you might prefer having a cheeky wank over. It's not really that hard to write characters who are funny and interesting if you give it a little work, and Comic Party puts in the time to make that happen. Number 2. My Bride is a Mermaid. Only barely managing to be a harem show, Seto no Hanayome gets to sit comfortably at number 2 by doing what so many harem shows fail at, and that is actually being funny. It dispenses with what hung up shows like Rosario plus Vampire and Is This a Zombie by not being too serious and avoiding fan service for the most part. Again, what helps a lot of harem shows be worth watching is if the characters are capable outside of the ability to take a hit. And Sun and Lunar are both astoundingly capable and strong characters, perhaps to Nagatsumi's detriment. However, he mans up harder than a lot of harem protagonists and shows what's up when he has to. Sun and Nagasumi are a team, and that's what being in a relationship is all about. Number 1. Clannad. You know what makes a good harem show? When it's not worried about being a harem show. Yes, it may seem odd to call Clannad a harem show, but it fits the criteria. And it really goes above and beyond the Call of Duty because this is a show that features some of the most real characters in an anime yet. Deeply flawed characters don't show up much in anime these days, especially when you're trying to make sure the audience can stand in for them. So when Clannad goes all out, it really goes all out and makes a definitive impact. It's almost like they wanted to make a good story, and then they did. Now, granted, it does have its own set of issues, but it's not bending over backwards to be a harem. It's bending over backwards to make a story that will resonate with you. And that's what anime should strive to do, not be weird fap material. Folks, harem shows are this weird, sterling testament to masculine failure. It is the band-aid on the gaping wound of male inadequacy that says, don't worry how useless and talentless you may be, you can still have women crawling all over you. And otaku have been eating it up for years now. It's turned season after season into a never-ending parade of sailor uniforms and shouts of Oni-chan, and it's only going to stop when people stop watching it. Because why would they put in the work to make shows like the ones I've listed when they can get away with the bare minimum? Demand more from your entertainment and make a push back against this crap.